So now I'm going to bring this home. I have come across an email that was sent to our school board here in July of 2020 saying everything that I've talked about in these other articles, letters, what Representative Decker has alluded to, what other news sources have alluded to, what Linda Duncan, one of our school board members, alluded to here in Jefferson County in the most recent school board meeting, that there's no consequences. Kids aren't being kicked off the buses. We're literally busing every kid, regardless of their desire to be educated. They're just disrupting. It's disrupting things. Now we won't let you into the football game without showing a student ID. And if you're not from that school, we won't let you into the football game unless you have a parent with you. But if you're whooping other kids' ass on the bus, or you're getting a blowjob on the bus, or you're talking shit to the bus driver, there's basically no consequences for that. And they want to change the word assault to mean that physical injury has to occur, and not just what was the word they'd used? Not just contact, actual injury. So this email was sent to Kevin Brown, who is our interim commissioner of education, Joette Fields, office of the commissioner of education. This person named Teresa Perry, and then James Craig, Diane Porter. So a couple of our school board members in Jefferson County. But I bet there's stuff like this going on in every district, especially every major district, urban district in the country. The one response that was sent back related to this was my school board member. I'm one of his constituents, James Craig. And yes, I don't care if I'm using his name. I don't care. His response to this email, or actually, he didn't respond to this person. That person seemed, but I'm assuming never got a response. But he forwarded this on to several of these people that said, I receive the same racist email from this gentleman once a year. So he read this email that I'm about to read to you, and the only response he had was, the guy's a racist. I'm going to read it to you in its entirety. You can be the judge. I'm going to leave his name out. The subject was JCPS Transportation Management, incompetent, biased, partisan. Biased, partisan, harassing. So Mr. Brown and Mr. Craig. So it was made out to the interim commissioner on education and his school board member, James Craig. So he didn't send it to James Craig because he was the white one. It's his constituent. He goes into it. As the interim Kentucky Commissioner of Education and as the District 3 School Board Representative, I'm writing to express my deep concerns over the incompetence, bias, partisanship, harassing management tactics, and unsafe condition of JCPS Transportation. This is in July of 2020. I worked in JCPS Transportation, driving a school bus for 6 years, from August 2012 through August 2018, at the Will Hoyt Bus Compound, managed by JCPS managers Netney Taylor, Tarita Brown, and Tanya Klinkskells. In August 2018, I took a full-time position. Where am I at? I lost my place. Full-time position with another transportation company where I continue to work today. Just some background about me. I graduated from Ballard High School. I won't say the year. Received a finance degree from the University of Virginia. I won't say the year. And worked as Vice President of Trust and Wealth Management for 27 years in Louisville and Richmond, Virginia. In 2011, I began working for the public school system as a school bus driver in order to have my summers off for golf, travel, etc. This is somebody who'd worked his whole life, VP of a wealth and trust management. So he's obviously got some money. Dude's loaded. Didn't want to be bored all the time, so he started driving a bus. So he thought he'd get to be around kids and people that make him feel young and still get his summers off to play golf and travel, but also make a little extra money. So he's not taking so much out of his investments. As a banker and a college-educated professional, I was shocked and appalled at the unprofessional, biased, partisan, incompetent, unsafe, and harassing work conditions that took place in JCPS Transportation and, frankly, in JCPS as a whole. The three management individuals listed above are responsible for the planning of bus routes, the safe operation and execution of bus routes, for managing, supporting, and caring for bus drivers, for following safety regulations and procedures, and for the safety and health of students and bus drivers on buses. They do a horrible job. They should be replaced. I was shocked at their unprofessionalism and their biased and harassing ways. They operate with a bunker mentality. Bunker mentality means that you are in the shit and taking fire and are in self-preservation mode. You're not opening that door up to let someone else in because you don't want to let a grenade in. Because all three are African Americans, they think that everyone is out to get them and remove them from their jobs. In my opinion, they only trust other African Americans and liberals. They have a very difficult time relating to other people. They have a very difficult time trusting other people, especially if those other people are white and educated. Now, that's going to make some people uncomfortable. I'm not endorsing everything that's been said. I'm just reading it. Same way I read these other articles, I'm reading exactly what was said. One thing that is interesting, at least one of these individuals was involved in a civil rights lawsuit against JCPS that was filed in 2019 from an incident in 2016 stating that they were not getting a job because they were African American. And subsequently, within a year of filing that lawsuit, actually it's less than a year, from that time that filed lawsuit to the time this email was sent, that person that had filed the lawsuit had gotten the job they wanted. So they obviously, they put in the record that they felt like the white people in charge of hiring in JCPS were racist and like were systemically keeping them from getting jobs. So knowing that would, to me, that's what he's saying here would be consistent with that type of mindset, and maybe even justifiable. I mean, I'm not saying it would even be wouldn't be relevant or understandable. And especially, they have a very difficult time taking any type of constructive criticism to try to improve the JCPS transportation system. They take everything personally. They have no ability to just focus on a problem and work on a solution. They take any discussion of a problem as a criticism and a personal attack. Tanya Cleanscales is particularly a problem in this regard. She takes everything personally, and in my opinion, she is in a job that does not suit her personality and it does not suit her emotional state. But she's in the job simply because she's African American. Now, I'm not endorsing that. I don't know if that's the case. JCPS's aggressive affirmative action policies have pushed many African Americans up the management ladder simply because they're African Americans, ignoring better qualified individuals, all in the name of trying to raise their standard of living and be a progressive organization. I applied for the management training program and for a job planning bus routes, but was denied simply because, in my opinion, I did not cater to their huge egos, did not try to befriend them, and because I'm white, in my 50s, conservative, and not poor. Pitiful. JCPS promotes employees based on race, financial status, and political ideology, not on merit, ability, and education. That is why JCPS has problems and is not trusted. Now, a couple of people that he is accusing here filed a lawsuit saying the same thing, just in the opposite point of view, right? So I don't think it's crazy to think that the pendulum swung so far to where now the same thing was happening in the other direction. The fact of the matter is, this is part of the problem about affirmative action policies, is that those policies tend to not account for actual merit and hard work. And I think my point is that I think even it's possible for a black person that is less qualified than another black person to get those jobs, because they've taken in who they know and who has filed a lawsuit and who hasn't. So again, I'm not endorsing this. I'm just saying it's understandable, and it doesn't lead me to think the guy's just a straight up racist. I think it's consistent with what we're hearing across everywhere. Even on the flip side of that, before that, I do think there are systems in place where the people that are still in there are doing racially motivated things. JCPS managers feel that if you try to suggest a change or an improvement, that you are being racist and criticizing them because they're black. Ridiculous. They are the ones who are racist because they cannot deal with other people. They have such huge and fragile egos that they cannot focus on a problem but take everything personally. They excuse the rule-breaking, disruptive, rude, violent behavior of black students. They cover up the rule-breaking behavior of black students. There have been fights and attacks and assaults on JCPS buses for years because many students have no respect for education, the education system, for ethical behavior, and for rules. JCPS management and administrators do nothing to change this rule-breaking, rebellious behavior. JCPS managers and administrators are weak and simply are either afraid to punish black students that break the rules because they will be accused of being a racist, or they simply are showing favoritism. The same thing happens at Will Hoyt compound. So again, I'm not in the system. I'm not saying that's happening. This is somebody who drove a bus for 6 years that was willing to go on the record to say this, because the emails are all public record. What I will say is I am willing to endorse that, take out the skin color of the students and just say, students, they are covering up rule-breaking behavior of students. Fights and attacks and assaults are breaking out on buses, and the students are not being disciplined and are not facing ramifications or repercussions. Tarita Brown and Netney Taylor yell at employees that they do not like and they do not want to work there. She and Netney Taylor try to harass and try to intimidate drivers that they do not want to work there. They intentionally try to drive away certain, especially white, more educated drivers, so that the only workers there will be black or their friends. It's called nepotism. When I worked there, both of them threatened me and tried to harass me. I saw them threaten other drivers and harass other drivers. My fiance has worked there from 2008 through today. She's been harassed by these managers and by other drivers who support these managers. Netney Taylor even threw an object at her. She's been yelled at and treated very unprofessionally, as have other drivers. These managers are horrible. They are biased, partisan, game players, manipulators, unfair, and on top of that, they do not follow proper safety and JCPS procedures. They try to skirt proper procedures if they can. They allow drivers to skirt and ignore proper safety procedures. They are awful and need to be replaced. JCPS transportation as a whole needs a complete overhaul. Stop busing students unless it is accomplished in a safe, efficient manner for bus drivers and students. Stop wasting millions of dollars of taxpayer money on transportation costs that only produce problems in an unhealthy work and education environment. If nothing else, the dude knows money. He was the vice president of wealth and trust management for 27 years at Wachovia Bank. In the calendar year of 2017, I was elected by the drivers of the Will Hoyt compound to serve on the JCPS Transportation Employee Involvement Committee to discuss bus driving issues. So all the drivers at Will Hoyt compound. I can't remember how many compounds there are, but I know there's like 600 drivers now. At this point, I think there were still 900. So there's no way, it's not all white bus drivers. So bus drivers of all skin colors voted for him to be their representative on this committee. We had 3 scheduled meetings, January, February, and April 2017. The meetings were facilitated by Randy France, a director of transportation at that time, who has his own sordid past, has never been in a position for longer than 3 years, and seems to just jump around and has connections with people that he was labeled the right-hand man of our local public transportation, the TARC. It's called TARC. He was labeled his right-hand man, and that guy was let go for being labeled and accused of being of sexual predatorial behavior. Enough so that where he was let go. And is now, guess what? Director of transportation somewhere else. The meetings were facilitated by Randy France, director of transport at the time. As a trained professional, I was very comfortable bringing up many of the problems that existed and exist in JCPS transportation, including overcrowded school buses, inefficient routes, harassing treatment of bus drivers, attempts verbally and in writing to try to intimidate drivers, unsafe working conditions, violence on buses, biased managers, inappropriate and unprofessional radio communication by JCPS managers, lack of support from Will Hoyt managers, lack of support from principals, lack of following pre-trip and safety regulations, and lack of punishment for misbehaving rule-breaking students. I offered some possible changes and solutions, including, so he brought up overcrowded school buses. We know about that. Inefficient routes. Oh boy, do we know about that. Harassing treatment of bus drivers. Yep, check. Attempts verbally and in writing to try to intimidate drivers. We're hearing about that now. Unsafe working conditions, check. Violence on buses, yep, we know it. Biased managers, we don't know that. It's an accusation. Inappropriate and unprofessional radio communications, we can't, I can't verify that. Lack of support from public managers, lack of support from principals. We're hearing that from teachers too. Principals aren't supporting them. They are just middle managers from administrators down. I know there might be a good one here or there. I'm not saying, everybody's like, oh, my principal's great. Our school's great. We're not talking about exceptions to the rule. And then lack of following pre-trip and safety regulations. Elementary school students on buses with high school students. Having to walk down highly trafficked roads at 7 years old in the dark. Having to stand on the corner in the dark at 7 years old. Having to walk 0.8 miles from your house. And lack of punishment for misbehaving rule-breaking students. Because Randy France and Tanya Clinkscales took my speaking up about problems and solutions as personal criticism, Randy France had Tanya Clinkscales remove me from the meeting, and then she verbally threatened to have me physically dragged out of the building if I did not leave. So what did he do? Did he throw a fit? Did he start throwing punches, start launching, like screaming? No. He said, I, of course, left. Because I'm an retired, educated professional that's doing this as like a side hustle, and I'm not trying to lose my freedom over it. That's what he basically. I was shocked at their unprofessional, low-class, strong-armed, uneducated behavior and management tactics. I then received a letter from them in late April 2017 informing me that I had been removed from the committee by them because I was supposedly not being, and he's put in quotes, positive enough. So he has documented evidence, proof, he was being removed because he wasn't being positive enough. In truth, they simply did not want to talk about problems. The minutes of the meetings were whitewashed and many discussions were left out if they were discussions about real problems. This is a perfect example of what is wrong with JCPS and why our community does not trust this organization, why this is a failing organization, and why every family possible sends their students to private schools or moves to Oldham County to avoid JCPS schools. The JCPS managers are biased and unethical. JCPS does not force students to behave on buses, and if a driver complains, then they are targeted for dismissal by either harassing them or pulling their tape to try to find a minor safety violation. So they're recording them, and they use that as blackmail. Students assault drivers. Students assault other students. Students trash the buses. Students are allowed to act in rude, disrespectful ways. Students yell at other students. Students throw trash out bus windows. And principals ignore bus behavior problems. There are constant problems in JCPS transportation, and the Teamsters Union do nothing to address these problems on buses, especially the buses coming from the west end of Louisville. Pitiful. They simply want to force busing on this community at whatever cost. Stand up for what is right. Do not be bullied by the liberal left, the Democrats, and the African American community. I wouldn't have added that last part there. Protect our schools, our school employees, our bus drivers, and the well-behaved students. Overhaul JCPS transportation. It is a cesspool of biased, partisan, unethical, harassing, game-playing managers. I have copied all KDOE board members, and I will continue to advocate for change concerning JCPS transportation in order to improve our public school system. Thank you for your consideration. Regardless of how you feel about this, listen, it was thoughtfully written. I'm reading it. It's all grammatically correct. The guy's open and transparent about who he is, where he went to school, what his qualifications are, what his background is. He is not trying to hide anything. Just like these teachers over here know they're going to get blowback. He knows he's going to get blowback. He knows anyone else that speaks is going to get blowback. He doesn't care. He knows it's time to raise up. Again, I don't endorse all the way. I wouldn't have worded some things the way he'd worded them. But I'm also not in the trenches and just totally fed up and done with trying to be diplomatic. But what he's saying is consistent with what the Midwestern Teacher Survey said. It's consistent with what the Milwaukee Sentinel Journal is saying. Consistent with the article coming out of National Review that was done with Akron, Ohio. So we got Akron, Ohio. We got Milwaukee Sentinel Journal. We got the entire Midwest. And now we have Louisville, Kentucky. We have them all over the country. And this guy's school board member, the person that's been elected to represent him, he's a constituent of this board member. That board member gave it from the time he received this email at 11:49 a.m. to the time he forwarded it over to the interim commissioner on education in Kentucky at 11:53 a.m. So he gave that thoughtfully written out email 4 minutes. And the only thing he could do and say about it when he forwarded it over was, I receive the same racist email from this gentleman once a year. Nothing else in there taken seriously. None of the accusations, none of the student safety outcries, none of the bus driver safety notifications. This guy makes some pretty significant claims in here. It was totally dismissed, not followed up with, and one short sentence was the only response, the only mind paid to it. I received the same racist email from this gentleman once a year. If this doesn't prove things to you that our public school system is just, listen, they don't care about teachers, they don't care about students, they don't care about constituents, they don't care about stakeholders, they don't care about taxpayers, they don't care. I'm tired of beating around the bush and trying to act nice. They don't give a damn.